Deadpool and Wolverine is a movie that I probably don't need to explain to most of the people watching this video because it's one of the biggest movies of the summer, if not the whole year. Hell, it's on my most anticipated of the year list. The first Deadpool was directed by Tim Miller, the second one by David Leitch, and this one is directed by Shawn Levy, who he's okay. I actually enjoyed Free Guy more than most people did, and I think Night at the Museum is fine, but he's never been a director to outright impress me. However, there were enough other things going on in this Deadpool film that I was hopeful it would still be good. For those who don't know the context behind Disney and Fox and everything that's happening right now as these two universes collide, let me explain real quick. So the Deadpool character was initially part of the Fox X-Men universe, as was Wolverine. They were not a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe until Disney bought Fox, and now all of these characters have merged over. So this is the first Deadpool movie to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know, with the Avengers and all of those other films. This is a spoiler-free review, so I'm going to be very light with plot details. Just going to go off of what they show in the trailer. I'm even going to exclude some of the things that they show in the trailer because I think some of the cameos that they show should have been saved and revealed in the movie itself. But we once again follow Wade Wilson, or Deadpool, played by Ryan Reynolds, and he's captured by the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, a group of characters that were introduced in Loki. I only watched the first season of Loki, but to be honest, the movie makes it easy enough for you to follow. Much like Spider-Man No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness, we're getting alternate timelines and characters being brought in from different universes, and now Deadpool is given the opportunity to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe and be a hero among heroes, as the trailer states. Unfortunately, I'm now starting to feel the logic of these stories crumble under the massive weight of these grand storylines with multiple universes, different timelines colliding. It sounded really cool on paper, and don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Spider-Man No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness, but I think this type of storyline is starting to drag down the universe because it sets up these expectations for tons of big cameos and awe-inducing moments that make audience members gasp while they're in the theater. It also creates this situation in which character deaths are essentially meaningless because they can always just bring in a variant from a different timeline, and we see that very concept brought to life in this film in the form of Wolverine, who died a very poignant death in the film Logan from 2017. So going into this, I was hopeful that if they're going to resurrect him, they have a really meaningful, purposeful story and reason to bring him back from the dead. Because it's tough to buy into any sort of emotional stakes when you know, even if they kill this variant, they can bring in more variants and more and more. And it's just a never-ending, massive multiverse that ultimately collapses onto itself when you rely on it to tell your stories. But ultimately, I'll be honest with you, Deadpool and Wolverine is not a heavily story-driven movie. It's more so about the dynamic between these two characters, Ryan Reynolds, Wade Wilson, or Deadpool, and Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine. He's Deadpool. I mean, at this point, Ryan Reynolds has kind of become Wade Wilson to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that half of his lines were improvised. I could totally see that, and if you didn't like him in the first two Deadpool movies, you're not going to like him here. The Merc with a Mouth is as crass and irreverent as ever, constantly spouting one-liners, breaking the fourth wall to talk directly to the audience, and making fun of Disney while Disney does the very things that they're making fun of. Segueing back over to Wolverine, Hugh Jackman is great, man. I loved watching him in this, and it's good to see another rated R version of Wolverine. So when he gets into the slicing and dicing, it's violent, it's bloody, and it's a lot of fun, man. And his performance is great. I do think the arc that they gave him, and there is an arc, is a bit shallow. Of course, this Logan is from a different universe from the one that died in 2017's Logan, so I was hoping they would really give him a meaty storyline. And we get little snippets of it, but quite frankly, his backstory is very underdeveloped, so it was difficult to truly buy into this character and fall in love with him the way I have in the past. With that said, the buddy cop element with Deadpool and Wolverine getting into arguments with one another and ultimately brawling all the time. It was a lot of fun, man. Both of these characters have regenerative abilities, so it's really cool to see them go at it and truly get brutal with each other, and yet they can still walk away from the fight with no visible injuries. Once again, I'm going to stay light on plot details, but eventually the TVA leads Deadpool and Wolverine into this wasteland type of environment. Honestly, it felt like it was ripped straight out of Thor Ragnarok, that garbage planet from that movie. And it's there that we meet our villain Cassandra Nova. Gotta be honest, she was pretty much your average generic Marvel villain. Her powers were pretty cool. I mean, at least the way she uses them, she like sticks her fingers and hands inside of people's heads. It's really disturbing to watch, but the character was ultimately very forgettable. You know who did steal the show though is Matthew Macfadyen. Not sure if I'm saying his name correctly. Tom from Succession. Dude was great here. He's one of the authoritative figures in the TVA. There's some conflict going on there in the higher ranks of that organization. Another element that this movie probably could have fleshed out more. Let's talk about the cameos real quick because there are a lot of them in this film and I'm not going to spoil a single one of them. But I did try to taper my expectations going in because I've been disappointed by cameos in the past in this franchise with Multiverse of Madness. No Way Home, on the other hand, I think handled it better because Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield actually had a purpose to the story. They had something to contribute to the arc for the main Peter Parker in that movie, and some of the characters that cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine do contribute to the story, and I was pleasantly surprised by that. However, there are definitely others that are just there to make audience members gasp, to show up for 5 minutes and then never be seen again. And those were ultimately a bit meaningless. There were a few others, though, that I have to say were just generally badass to see on screen. And they all get together in a room and you're like, oh my god, I'm about to watch these people fight together. That's pretty cool. There are entire sequences in this movie that are just pure fan service, and that's going to sit well with some people and not so well with others. Ultimately, I think there is a little bit too much of a focus there, and it takes away from what otherwise could have been a very potent, powerful story with more deep themes. But most of us don't go to a Deadpool movie for that. We go to a Deadpool movie for fun action, fourth wall breaking, wisecracking Wade Wilson and company, and you definitely get that. Some of the action sequences are a lot of fun, but if I had to pinpoint one of my issues with Shawn Levy as a director, I think the way he shoots action is just kind of bland. He doesn't really do anything inventive with the camera, and a lot of the action sequences in this movie are a bit shaky. It's difficult to decipher exactly what's happening, even though there's blood and limbs and body parts flying everywhere. In the end, if you didn't like the first or second Deadpool, you're not gonna like this one. Even if you're a fan of Logan, I don't think that's enough to overtake what is a very crass, jokey movie in which some of the humor lands, some of the humor doesn't. It's definitely the type of movie that is light on story and character depth, instead trying to seduce you with its colorful, bloody visuals, constant loud pop songs in the background, and fan service. I had a lot of fun with it, guys. This is a really fun movie, but quite frankly, I think people need to taper their expectations a little bit because this doesn't have major implications for the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward. By the end of this film, I wasn't like, oh, so this is how Deadpool is going to completely change the game in terms of future Avengers films or other team-up movies. I have no idea how this factors into that. It's just kind of a fun standalone movie with a lot of fan service, and it's pretty light on story. So I'm going to give Deadpool and Wolverine 3.5 stars. I think I liked it about as much as I liked Deadpool 2, but, you know, it's always the case with these movies. Like, the first time I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I gave it the same score as this film. I saw it a second time and wound up bumping it up to like 4.5 or something. If I rewatch it in a few days or a few weeks, hell, even a few months, I might have different thoughts on it. It always has the potential to go up and down, but for now, this is how I'm feeling about it. So if you do see Deadpool and Wolverine, which I'm sure many of you will because it's bound to be one of the highest grossing films of the year, be sure to let me know down in the comments what you think of it. Hit that like button and subscribe while you're at it if you want to see more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.